He looked her right in the eye that morning and kissed her forehead. He told their son, "Daddy's going to bring you the biggest surprise tonight, champ." She believed him. She always believed him. But 6 hours later, as she sat in the corner of the most expensive steakhouse in the city, holding a melting ice cream cake, Fiona watched her husband walk through the front door. He wasn't holding a present. He wasn't rushing to get to them. He was holding her hand. And the way he looked at that woman, it was the way he used to look at Fiona before the money, the promotions, and the lies took over. That was the moment her life didn't just break. It shattered. The calendar on the fridge had been circled in red marker for 3 weeks. October 14th, Leo's 7th birthday. For Fiona, it wasn't just a date, it was a deadline. A deadline to prove that the Miller family was still intact, still happy, despite the growing silence that had filled their sprawling suburban home in Oak Creek over the last 6 months. "David, please tell me you remembered the telescope," Fiona whispered, pressing the phone to her ear as she balanced a tray of blueberry pancakes. It was 7:15 a.m. On the other end of the line, the sound of traffic hummed. David was already in the car. He had left before the sun came up, claiming a crisis with the chaotic merger at his firm, Sterling and Finch. "Fiona, I'm driving." David's voice was clipped, tight. "Yes, I ordered it. It's supposed to arrive at the office today. I'll bring it home tonight. Is he up?" "He's getting dressed. He thinks you're still in the shower." "Don't do that," David snapped. "Don't make me the bad guy. I'm working my tail off to pay for this party, aren't I? Just tell him I love him. I'll be home by 6 p.m. Sharp. Reservation at the Golden Roast, right?" 6 p.m, David. Please. He's turning 7. He only gets one 7th birthday. "I know. I love you. Gotta go." The line went dead. Fiona stared at the phone for a second too long before pasting a smile on her face and turning around, just as Leo came skidding into the kitchen in his Spider-Man socks. "Where's Daddy?" Leo asked, his eyes scanning the room, looking for the tall man in the grey suit who used to lift him up to touch the ceiling. "Daddy had to go fight some bad guys at work, bug," Fiona said, dropping a pancake onto his plate. "But he is going to be home early tonight, and we are going to get the biggest steak in the world. And guess what else?" Leo's eyes widened. "The telescope?" "Maybe," Fiona winked. The day was a blur of anxious preparation. Fiona wasn't just a housewife. She was the architect of their social standing. She managed the finances, the social calendar, and recently, the damage control for David's increasing absenteeism. She spent the afternoon baking Leo's favorite chocolate cake, just in case the restaurant dessert wasn't enough. At 4:30 p.m., the text came. It wasn't a call. It wasn't a voice note. It was a cold grey bubble on her iPhone screen. "David, crisis with the client. Cannot leave. Reschedule dinner for weekend. Tell Leo I'm sorry. Buy him something nice from me." Fiona stood in the middle of the living room, the silence deafening. She felt a physical blow to her chest. It wasn't just the cancellation, it was the method. A text? On his son's birthday? She typed back furiously, "You promised. He is waiting by the window." 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. Then appeared again. "David, stop the guilt trip. I'm doing this for us. Don't wait up." Fiona looked at Leo. He was sitting on the ottoman by the bay window, wearing his best button-down shirt, watching every car that turned onto their street. "Is Daddy here?" Leo asked, not turning around. Fiona swallowed the lump in her throat so hard it hurt. She couldn't do it. She couldn't break his heart here, in the house. She needed a distraction. She needed noise and lights and food. Daddy is stuck saving the world, Leo," she lied, her voice trembling only slightly. "But you know what? That means we get to go on a secret mission. Just you and me. We're going to the fancy restaurant anyway, and we're going to order everything on the menu." Leo looked down, his shoulders slumping. "Okay." It broke her. "Get your shoes," Fiona said, grabbing her keys with a sudden, fierce determination. "We are going to Le Jardin." It wasn't the Golden Roast. Le Jardin was an upscale French bistro on the other side of the city, near David's office. It was exorbitant, loud, and impossible to get into without a reservation. But Fiona knew the manager, an old friend named Jessica. If she couldn't give Leo his father, she would give him a night of luxury. They drove into the city, the skyline glowing purple and gold. Fiona played Leo's favorite songs, singing loudly to drown out the silence from the passenger seat. They arrived at Le Jardin at 7:00 p.m. The place was buzzing. Valets in red vests were parking Porsches and Mercedes. The air smelled of truffle oil and expensive perfume. Jessica squeezed them in at a small private booth near the back, shielded by a trellis of ivy. It was cozy. "You're the best date ever," Fiona told Leo, clinking her water glass against his soda. "Thanks, Mom," Leo smiled weakly. "I wish Daddy was here, though. He said he wanted to show me how to cut a steak." "I know, baby, I know." Fiona ordered the filet mignon, the lobster mac and cheese, and the truffle fries. She was trying to fill the void with calories. At 7:45 p.m., the front door of the restaurant opened. Fiona was facing the entrance. It was a habit she picked up years ago. Always watch the door. The bell chimed. The host, a tall man named Pierre, stepped forward with a smile. Fiona's fork froze halfway to her mouth. It was David. He was wearing the same grey suit he had left the house in that morning. He looked tired, but not crisis at work tired. He looked energized, and he wasn't alone. Clinging to his arm was a woman. She was stunning, younger than Fiona, perhaps 25. She had chestnut hair that fell in loose waves down her back and was wearing a slip dress that cost more than Fiona's first car. Fiona watched, paralyzed, as David leaned down and whispered something into the woman's ear. The woman threw her head back and laughed, a bright, tinkling sound that cut through the restaurant's ambient jazz. David smiled. It was a genuine smile, a smile Fiona hadn't seen directed at her in years. He placed a hand on the small of the woman's back, guiding her not to a business meeting, but to the romantic corner table by the window, the table reserved for anniversaries and proposals. Leo was busy coloring on his kids' menu. He hadn't seen them. Fiona felt the blood drain from her face, leaving her cold and dizzy. Crisis with the client. The lie tasted like bile in her mouth. "Mum, are you okay?" Leo's voice seemed to come from underwater. He was looking at her, his brown eyes wide with concern. He had noticed her hand shaking, the fork rattling against the china. Fiona forced herself to breathe. In. Out. If she made a scene now, Leo would see. Leo would see his father with another woman on his birthday. That trauma would last a lifetime. She had to protect him. "I'm fine, Bug," Fiona said, forcing a sip of water. "Just a little brain freeze from the ice water. Hey, look at that lobster tank over there. Can you count how many are in it?" Leo turned his head toward the back wall. 1, 2, 3. While Leo counted, Fiona turned her gaze back to table 4. David was pulling out the chair for the woman. Her name, Fiona would later learn, was Isabella. But right now, she was just the woman. Fiona reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. Her hands were trembling so violently she almost dropped it. She opened the camera app. Zoom. The image on her screen was grainy but clear enough. David holding Isabella's hand across the white tablecloth, David laughing, David leaning in to kiss her knuckles. Click, click, click. Every photo felt like a nail in the coffin of her marriage. 8 lobsters, Leo announced, turning back around. 8? Wow, Fiona said, sliding her phone under her leg. That's a lot. Mum, can I go to the bathroom? Leo asked, squirming. Panic spiked in Fiona's chest. The bathroom was near the entrance. To get there, Leo would have to walk right past table 4. No, she said. Too quickly. Leo looked confused. But I really have to go. Fiona looked around. The waiter was approaching with their appetizers. She needed a plan. Okay, she said, her mind racing. But we have to play a game. It's called Secret Agent. You have to walk to the bathroom super fast, keeping your head down so the spies don't see you. Can you do that? Look at your feet the whole time. Leo's eyes lit up. Like a ninja. Exactly like a ninja. Go. She watched him scurry past David's table, his eyes glued to his light-up sneakers. David was too busy pouring wine for Isabella to notice his own son walking 5 feet away from him. The sight made Fiona want to scream. She wanted to march over there, flip the table, and pour the expensive Pinot Noir over David's lying head. She wanted to scream, "It's your son's birthday, you coward!" But she didn't. Fiona was a lawyer before she was a mother. She knew that anger was useful, but strategy was lethal. When Leo returned, breathless from his ninja mission, the food arrived. Fiona cut his steak, smiling, chatting, playing the role of the happy mother. Inside, she was dying. After 40 minutes, David and Isabella stood up. Fiona's heart hammered against her ribs. Were they leaving? No. Isabella was heading to the powder room. David sat back down, checking his watch. This was her chance. "Leo," Fiona said, her voice steady. "Here is my phone. You can play Minecraft for 5 minutes. Do not look up until I get back. Mommy has to go say hi to a friend." "Okay." Leo grabbed the phone, instantly absorbed. Fiona stood up. She smoothed her dress. She didn't walk with anger. She walked with grace. She walked right up to table 4 and stood directly in front of David. He was looking down at his menu. "The escargot is excellent here," Fiona said calmly. David's head snapped up. The color drained from his face so fast he looked like a corpse. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. He looked at Fiona, then frantically looked around the restaurant. "Es Fiona," he choked out. What are you doing here?" "Celebrating," she said, her voice ice cold. "Leo wanted steak. You said you were working. Funny place for a client meeting, David. Does the client usually sit on your lap?" "Fiona, keep your voice down," David hissed, standing up and reaching for her arm. "It's not what it looks like. Let's go outside." She stepped back, avoiding his touch. "Do not touch me." "Fiona, please. Isabella, she's a consultant. We're celebrating a deal." "Is that why you were kissing her hand?" Fiona asked, raising an eyebrow. "Is that standard corporate protocol now?" David wiped sweat from his forehead. "You're making a scene. Where is Leo?" Fiona pointed to the back booth. "He's right there, eating his birthday dinner, alone, because his father is too busy consulting to remember he exists." David looked at Leo, then back at Fiona, panic setting in. "Does he know?" "No," Fiona said, "because unlike you, I put him first. I'm not going to ruin his night. But yours is about to get very complicated." Just then, the bathroom door opened. Isabella was walking back, smiling, touching up her lipstick. "David, darling, I was thinking we could—" She stopped when she saw Fiona. Isabella looked from David to Fiona. She wasn't stupid. She saw the resemblance in the wedding rings they both wore, the rings Fiona had designed. "Oh," Isabella said, her smile faltering. "You must be." "The wife," Fiona finished for her. "And you must be the crisis at work." Isabella looked at David, confused. "David, you told me you were separated. You said the divorce was being finalized next week." Fiona laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. "Separated. We had breakfast together this morning. He kissed me goodbye." David looked like a trapped animal. "Isabella, let me explain." "Don't bother," Fiona interrupted. She leaned in close to David, her voice dropping to a whisper that was more terrifying than a scream. "You have 10 minutes to finish your drink and get out of here before Leo finishes his game. If he sees you, David, if he sees you with her on his birthday, I will make sure you never see him again. And I will take everything. The house, the cars, the firm, everything." She didn't wait for an answer. She turned on her heel and walked back to her booth. "Mum?" Leo looked up as she sat down. "Who was that?" Fiona picked up her fork. "Just someone who used to know Daddy. Eat your fries, baby. Dessert is coming." But as Fiona smiled at her son, her mind was already calculating. She wasn't just going to divorce David. She was going to destroy him. Little did she know, the woman standing at table 4 wasn't just a mistress, and the deal David was celebrating wasn't just about money. The secret ran much deeper than an affair, and the man she had married was involved in something far more dangerous than infidelity. Heavy quiet that filled the SUV. Leo had fallen asleep in the back seat, clutching a plastic ninja figurine he'd received with his kid's meal. In the rearview mirror, he looked so small, so innocent. He didn't know that his world had fundamentally shifted in the last hour. He didn't know that the nice lady at the restaurant was the reason his father wasn't coming home to tuck him in. Fiona parked the car in the driveway of their 4-bedroom colonial. The house was dark. David's spot in the garage was empty. She carried Leo upstairs, his dead weight heavy in her arms. She stripped off his jeans, pulled on his pajama bottoms, and tucked him in. She sat there for a long time, just listening to his breathing. In, out. She needed to be calm. She needed to be the Fiona who graduated top of her class in law school, not the Fiona who had spent the last 7 years picking out curtains and arranging playdates. The lawyer was still in there somewhere, buried under layers of domestic compromise. She went downstairs and poured herself a glass of wine. Her hands were finally steady. At 10:15 p.m., headlights swept across the living room wall. The sound of the garage door opening rumbled beneath the floorboards. He was home. Fiona sat in the armchair in the living room, waiting in the dark. She didn't turn on a light. The door from the garage opened. David walked in. He looked disheveled. His tie was loosened, his top button undone. He looked like a man who had run a marathon, or perhaps a man who had spent the last 2 hours arguing with his mistress. He flipped the light switch. When he saw her sitting there, he jumped. "Jesus, Fiona," he exhaled, clutching his chest. "Why are you sitting in the dark?" "Did she dump you?" Fiona asked, her voice flat. David sighed, a long, weary sound designed to make her feel like she was the unreasonable one. He walked over to the minibar and poured himself a scotch. "Fiona, can we not do this tonight? I'm exhausted." "You're exhausted?" She stood up. "Leo waited by the window for 3 hours, David. 3 hours." "I told you it was work," David snapped, slamming his glass down. "Isabella isn't just some fling. She's the daughter of the primary investor for Project Horizon. If I didn't entertain her, the firm would lose millions. I was doing my job." Fiona stared at him. It was a masterclass in gaslighting. He was trying to turn his infidelity into a noble sacrifice for the family finances. "So holding her hand was part of the job?" she asked, stepping closer, kissing her knuckles, lying to her about us being separated. Was that in the contract? David's face hardened. You don't understand how this world works anymore, Fiona. You've been out of the game too long. Sometimes you have to massage the truth to close a deal. You told her we were divorcing next week, she said. I said whatever I had to say to keep her happy until the papers were signed, David shouted. Do you like this house? Do you like the private school Leo goes to? Do you like your Range Rover? Because this, he gestured to himself, pays for all of it. If I have to flirt with a spoiled heiress to keep the lights on, I will. You should be thanking me, not stalking me. For a second, she almost believed him. That was David's superpower. He could sell ice to an Eskimo. He could make you feel crazy for trusting your own eyes. But then she remembered the way he looked at her. It wasn't pained. It wasn't calculated. It was adoration. I want to see your phone, Fiona said. David froze. What? Your phone. Unlock it. Give it to me. Don't be ridiculous, he scoffed, turning away. I have client privilege. Confidential files. I don't care about the files. I want to see your texts with Isabella. No. Then get out. The silence stretched, tight as a piano wire. Excuse me? David laughed nervously. This is my house. And I'm the one raising our son in it, Fiona said. You have two choices. You unlock that phone right now, or you pack a bag and go stay at the Marriott. I won't have a liar in the same house as my son. David looked at her, his eyes narrowing. He was assessing her, looking for a crack, a sign of weakness. He didn't find one. Fine, he spat. You want to play hardball? Fine, I'll leave. But don't expect me to come crawling back when you realize you can't pay the electric bill. He stormed upstairs. Fiona heard drawers slamming. 10 minutes later, he came down with an overnight bag. He stopped at the door. You're making a mistake, Fiona. You have no idea what kind of pressure I'm under. You have no idea what's actually going on. I know enough, she said. He slammed the door. Fiona waited until she heard his car pull away. Then she did the one thing he didn't expect. She didn't cry. She didn't call her mother. She went into his home office. David was meticulous about security. His laptop was encrypted. His filing cabinets were locked. But David was also arrogant. He assumed Fiona was just a housewife who didn't know a hard drive from a hairdryer. He forgot that before she was a mum, Fiona was a forensic accountant for the district attorney's office. She didn't just understand money. She understood how people hid it. She sat at his desk. She didn't need his laptop. She needed paper. People always forgot about paper. She opened the bottom drawer of his desk, locked. She reached under the lip of the desk, feeling for the spare key he used to tape there years ago. It was gone. She looked around the room. David had a habit of hiding things in plain sight. Her eyes landed on the telescope, the one he had bought for Leo years ago, not the new one he forgot today. It sat in the corner, collecting dust. Fiona walked over to it. She unscrewed the lens cap. Inside the hollow tube of the tripod leg, she felt something cold. A key. She unlocked the drawer. Inside, there were no files on Project Horizon. There were no work contracts. There was a stack of bank statements. And a second phone, a burner. Fiona picked up the statements first. They weren't from Sterling and Finch. They were from a bank in the Cayman Islands, under a shell company name, Argent Holdings. She scanned the numbers. Her breath hitched. Deposits. Massive ones. $50,000. $100,000 every 2 weeks. But it was the withdrawals that made her blood run cold. They weren't going to Isabella. They weren't going to jewelry stores or hotels. They were going to a cryptic account labeled VK, and they were bleeding them dry. She picked up the burner phone. It was dead. She plugged it into her laptop charger. While it booted up, she looked at the most recent bank statement. The date was yesterday. Balance, $4.12. The account was empty. Her husband wasn't just cheating on her, he was broke. And based on the millions that had flowed through this account in the last year, he wasn't just an investment banker. He was washing money. The burner phone pinged. It was on. One new message, received 20 minutes ago, while David was arguing with her in the living room. Sender. Unknown. Message. She knows too much. If she talks, the deal is off. And you know what happens to loose ends. Fix it. Tonight. Fiona dropped the phone. The room suddenly felt very cold. David hadn't left because she kicked him out. He had left because he needed to get away from her. Or was he coming back? Fix it. Fiona ran to the front door and threw the deadbolt. She activated the alarm system. Her husband wasn't just a cheater. He was in danger. And by extension, so were Leo and Fiona. The next morning, the sun rose over Oak Creek as if nothing had happened. Birds chirped. The sprinklers hissed. Fiona hadn't slept. She had spent the night cross-referencing the bank statements with David's known associates. The picture was grim. At 8 a.m., she called a locksmith to change the locks. At 8:30 a.m., she called the bank to freeze their joint accounts. At 9 a.m., her doorbell rang. She checked the security camera on her phone. It wasn't David. It was Isabella. She was wearing oversized sunglasses and a trench coat, looking like a celebrity trying to avoid the paparazzi. She looked nervous. She kept glancing over her shoulder at the street. Fiona opened the door, keeping the security chain on. "What do you want?" she asked. Isabella took off her sunglasses. Her eyes were red and puffy. She looked nothing like the confident vixen from the restaurant. She looked terrified. "Fiona," she said, her voice shaking, "please, I need to talk to you. It's about David. I have nothing to say to you." Fiona started to close the door. "He's going to run," Isabella blurted out. "He's leaving the country tonight, and he's taking Leo." Fiona froze. She pulled the door back open. "What did you say?" "Let me in," Isabella pleaded. "Please, they might be watching." Fiona hesitated, then undid the chain. Isabella slipped inside, and Fiona locked the door behind her. They stood in the foyer. The tension was thick enough to choke on. "Talk," Fiona commanded. "I didn't know," Isabella said, tears spilling over. "I swear to God, Fiona, I didn't know he was married until last night. He told me he was a widower." "A widower?" Fiona let out a sharp, incredulous laugh. "He told me he was divorcing you." "He lies," Isabella said. "He lies about everything, but that's not why I'm here. You were right at the restaurant. I am connected. My father is Robert Sterling, the Sterling in Sterling and Finch." Fiona's jaw dropped. David wasn't sleeping with a client. He was sleeping with the boss's daughter. "David has been managing a private fund for my father," Isabella continued, wringing her hands. "Or so we thought. Last night, after you left, I confronted him. I demanded to see the accounts. I told him I was going to call my dad. And he panicked. He told me that if I made that call, people would die. He said he got mixed up with some bad people, loan sharks, maybe worse. Russian mob, I don't know. He said he lost their money, Fiona, millions, and now they want it back." Fiona thought of the bank statement. "Balance, $4.12. "He's been using my father's firm to launder money for them," Isabella said. "But he skimmed off the top. He got greedy. Now the account is empty, and the clients are coming to collect. He told me he has a plan. He said he has a stash of cash and passports hidden. He's planning to take a private charter to Brazil tonight. She looked at Fiona, her eyes wide with fear. He said he couldn't leave his son behind. He said Leo is the only thing that matters. A cold dread washed over Fiona. He's taking Leo. "Why are you telling me this?" Fiona asked. "Why help me?" Isabella reached into her purse and pulled out a folder. "Because he stole from my father, too. And because when I saw you with your son last night, I realized I was the villain in your story. I don't want to be the villain, Fiona. I want to help you bury him." She handed Fiona the folder. "This is the flight plan," she said. "He booked a charter out of the executive airport at 6 p.m. tonight. Flight 808. Fiona looked at the clock. It was 9:15 a.m. "Where is he now?" she asked. "He's at the office," Isabella said, shredding everything. Fiona grabbed her car keys. "Stay here. Watch the house. If anyone comes near the door, call 911. "Where are you going?" Isabella asked. "I'm going to get my son out of school," Fiona said, "and then I'm going to see your father." "My father?" Isabella paled. "He'll kill David. If the Russians don't get to him first," Fiona said grimly. She drove to Leo's school like a maniac. Her mind was racing. David wasn't just a failure. He was a criminal. And in his desperation, he had convinced himself that kidnapping their son was an act of love. She pulled up to the elementary school. The playground was empty. Classes were in session. Fiona ran into the front office. "I'm here to pick up Leo Miller. Family emergency." The receptionist, a sweet old lady named Mrs. Gable, looked up over her reading glasses. She frowned. "Mrs. Miller?" "But Mr. Miller already picked him up." The world stopped spinning. "What?" Fiona whispered. "About 20 minutes ago," Mrs. Gable said, checking her logbook. "He said you guys were going on a surprise birthday trip. Leo was so excited. He said you were going to see the monkeys in the jungle." "Brazil," Fiona stumbled back, gripping the counter for support. Did he say where they were going now?" "He said they had to stop by the office first to get his bags," Mrs. Gable said, looking concerned. "Fiona, is everything all right?" She didn't answer. She turned and ran. He had Leo. He had her baby. Fiona got back into her car, her hands shaking so hard she could barely put the key in the ignition. She dialed David's number. It went straight to voicemail. Twist 1. The timeline. David wasn't waiting until 6 p.m. That was a decoy he fed Isabella because he knew she would crack. He was moving now. She peeled out of the parking lot. She had to get to Sterling and Finch. It was a 30-minute drive. She made it in 15. Fiona abandoned the car in the loading zone and sprinted into the lobby. The security guard, Ralph, knew her. "Mrs. Miller, good to see. Is David upstairs?" she gasped. "He just left," Ralph said. "Took the freight elevator down to the garage about 2 minutes ago. Had his kid with him. Cute kid." "Don't let him leave," Fiona screamed. "Ralph, shut the gates!" Ralph looked confused, but he saw the terror in her eyes. He reached for his radio. "Base, lock down the garage. Now!" Fiona ran for the stairwell. She took the stairs 2 at a time, her heels clicking loudly on the concrete. She burst through the door to the parking garage, just in time to see David's black Audi SUV screeching toward the exit ramp. The metal security gate was slowly descending. "David!" she screamed, her voice echoing off the concrete walls. "David, stop!" He saw her. She saw his eyes in the side mirror. He didn't slow down. He gunned the engine. The Audi shot forward, slipping under the descending gate with only inches to spare. The antenna scraped against the metal with a sickening screech. And then he was gone. Fiona stood there, panting, watching the taillights disappear into the daylight. She had lost him. Her phone buzzed in her hand. It was a text from David. "I'm sorry, Fiona. I can't leave him with you. You'll understand one day. Don't follow us. If you call the police, the people chasing me will find us. Do you want Leo to get hurt? Stay quiet." She fell to her knees on the oily concrete. She screamed, a primal, gut-wrenching sound of a mother who had lost her heart. But as the tears fell, something else happened. The fear began to crystallize into something colder, harder. He had taken her son. He had threatened her. Fiona stood up. She wiped her face. She dialed the number on the business card Isabella had left in the folder. "Robert Sterling's office," a crisp voice answered. "Put him on," she said. "Tell him it's Fiona Miller. Tell him I know where his money is. And tell him I need a helicopter." David thought he was playing chess. He thought he was the king. He was about to learn that the queen is the most dangerous piece on the board. 30 minutes later, Fiona was standing in the penthouse office of Sterling and Finch. The view was breathtaking. The entire city laid out like a grid of gold and steel. But she wasn't looking at the view. She was looking at Robert Sterling. He was an intimidating man. Silver hair, eyes like chipped flint, and a stillness that suggested he was used to people fearing him. He sat behind a desk that probably cost more than her house. "Mrs. Miller," he said, his voice a low rumble. "My daughter tells me you're a woman of resourcefulness, but storming into my office demanding a helicopter is ambitious." "My husband has your money," Fiona said, cutting straight to the chase. "And he has my son. I don't care about the money, Mr. Sterling. You can burn it for all I care. But David is desperate, and desperate men make mistakes. If he gets on a plane, I lose my son forever. I need your resources to stop him." Sterling leaned back, tenting his fingers. "And why shouldn't I just call the FBI, or my own private security team, to intercept him?" "Because David isn't going to the airport," she said. Sterling raised an eyebrow. Isabella said, "Flight 808. "That's a decoy," Fiona said, pulling David's burner phone out of her pocket. "While I was driving here, this phone received a ping. It's a location tracker. David isn't heading to the executive airport. He's heading to the port of Los Angeles. Terminal 4. Sterling frowned. "The docks? Why?" "Because he's not flying commercial or private charter," she explained, her mind working fast. "The people he stole from, the VK on the bank statements, they aren't just investors. They're the Bratva, the Russian mob. David knows that if he goes to an airport, his passport will trigger an alert. He's trying to leave by sea, cargo ship. It's the only way to move that much cash without a paper trail." Sterling stood up. The air in the room shifted. He walked over to the window. "Victor Kaminsky," Sterling muttered. "VK. That explains the irregularity in the Asian markets." He turned back to her. "If Kaminsky is involved, your husband is a dead man walking. Kaminsky doesn't take apologies. He takes blood." "I don't care what happens to David," Fiona said, her voice trembling with suppressed rage. "I want Leo. If David tries to board a ship with my son, and the Russians find him first—" She didn't finish the sentence. The image of Leo caught in a crossfire made her knees weak. Sterling pressed a button on his desk. "Prepare the chopper, and get the security detail ready. Armored SUVs. We're going to the port." He looked at her. "You're coming with me, Fiona. You know him. You know how he thinks. And if Kaminsky is there, I might need a witness who isn't on my payroll." They moved fast. The elevator ride to the roof was a blur. The wind whipped Fiona's hair across her face as the helicopter blades spun to life. As they lifted off, soaring over the skyscrapers, she looked down at the burner phone in her hand. The dot representing David was moving steadily south towards the water. "He stopped," she shouted over the headset. "He's at a warehouse near the container yard." "That's the exchange point," Sterling said, his voice grim in her ear. "He's not just leaving. He's buying his way out. He's meeting them." "He's meeting the Russians?" Panic clawed at her throat. "With Leo in the car?" "He thinks he can negotiate," Sterling said. "He's a fool. You don't negotiate with tigers, Mrs. Miller. You shoot them." The helicopter banked hard, heading toward the grey expanse of the ocean. "Mr. Sterling," Fiona said, gripping the seatbelt, "if we get there and things go wrong, I need you to promise me something." "What?" "If it comes down to the money or the boy, you choose the boy." Sterling looked at her. For a second, the mask of the ruthless CEO slipped. He saw a mother who was willing to burn the world down. "We get the boy," Sterling promised. The warehouse district was a graveyard of rusted metal and shipping containers stacked like Lego bricks. It was desolate, the kind of place where things happened that never made the evening news. Their helicopter landed a mile away to maintain the element of surprise. 2 black SUVs were waiting for them. Sterling's ground team. They piled in. "Target is in Warehouse 4B, the head of security, a man named Kane, reported. "Thermal imaging shows 3 vehicles. One is Miller's Audi. The other 2 are unknown. Heavy heat signatures. They're armed." "Go," Sterling commanded. They tore through the chain-link gates. The SUVs screeched to a halt outside the massive rolling doors of Warehouse 4B. Kane and 4 other men, armed with assault rifles, moved into position. "Stay in the car," Sterling ordered Fiona. "No," she said, opening the door. "Leo is in there." "Fiona." She was already running. Fiona slipped through a side door, entering the cavernous space. The air smelled of diesel and salt water. In the center of the warehouse, David's black Audi was parked. The headlights were on, cutting through the gloom. David was standing outside the car. He was holding a metal briefcase. He looked sweaty, his tie gone, his shirt soaked. Facing him were 3 men. They were wearing leather jackets. The man in the middle was huge, with a scar running down his cheek. Viktor Kaminsky, and in the back seat of the Audi, she saw a small head. Leo. Fiona's heart stopped. He was watching a tablet, oblivious to the fact that 3 feet away, men with guns were deciding his father's fate. "It's all here," David was saying, his voice cracking. 5 million, bearer bonds and cash, just like we agreed. Now, I get the passage on the Vostok, right? Me and my son." Viktor laughed. It was a wet, ugly sound. David. Viktor stepped forward. "You think you steal from me, make me look like fool to my partners, and then you just buy ticket?" "I doubled your investment," David pleaded, holding out the briefcase. "Look, it's all there." Viktor motioned to one of his goons. The man stepped forward and snatched the briefcase. He opened it, checked the contents, and nodded. "Good," Viktor said. "We take money." "And the passage?" David asked, hope rising in his voice. "No passage," Viktor said, pulling a silenced pistol from his jacket. "You are liability, David. Loose end." David's eyes went wide. He stumbled back toward the car. "No, wait! I have more! I have the encryption keys to the Sterling accounts. I can give you access to everything." Fiona's blood ran cold. He was selling out Sterling. He was selling out everyone. Viktor paused. "Keys?" "Digital keys," David stammered. "On my phone. I haven't sent them yet. If you kill me, you never get them. It's another 10 million, easy." Viktor lowered the gun slightly. "Show me." This was it. If David handed over that phone, he was useless to them. They would kill him, and they would take Leo as a witness, or worse, collateral. Fiona stepped out from behind the shipping container. "He's lying," she screamed. Every head in the room snapped toward her. "Fiona!" David looked like he had seen a ghost. "Mummy!" Leo saw her through the window. He started pounding on the glass. "Let the boy go," she said, walking steadily toward the circle of men. Her legs were shaking, but her voice was iron. "Who is this?" Victor asked, amused. "The wife," David said, panic rising. "Fiona, get out of here." "He doesn't have the keys," she told Victor, ignoring David. "I do." David looked at her, confused. Then he patted his pocket. He realized his burner phone, the one with the backup codes, was gone. Fiona held up the burner phone she had taken from the house. "The access codes are on this device," she said, "and I just set a biometric lock on it. You can't open it without my fingerprint. And if my heart stops," she bluffed, "it wipes the data automatically." Victor looked at her with newfound respect. "Smart woman." "I want the boy," Fiona said, pointing to the car. "Let the boy run to me. Once he is safe outside, I will give you the phone." "Fiona, no!" David screamed. "That's my insurance." "You don't have insurance, David," she yelled back, the anger finally exploding. "You have nothing. You gambled our family and you lost." Victor smiled. "I like her. Okay. Deal." He nodded to his men. One of them opened the back door of the Audi. "Leo, run to Mommy," she shouted. Leo jumped out. He looked at David, then at the men with guns, then at her. "Run, baby, fast!" Leo sprinted across the concrete floor. Fiona dropped to her knees, catching him in her arms. The relief was so intense she almost passed out. She hugged him tight, shielding his body with hers. "Go," she whispered into his ear. "Run to the big door. Mr. Sterling is there. Go." She pushed him toward the exit. Leo hesitated, then ran. Kane caught him at the door, pulling him to safety. Fiona stood up. She was alone with the wolves. "Phone," Victor said, extending his hand. She looked at David. He was slumped against his car, defeated, a coward to the end. She looked at Victor. "Here," she said. She threw the phone. But she didn't throw it to Victor. She threw it high into the air, toward the dark corner of the warehouse, where the water lay deep and murky in the boat slip. "No!" Victor screamed. At that exact moment, the glass skylights of the warehouse shattered. Crash. Sterling's team rappelled down from the roof beams. Flashbangs detonated, blinding white light and a deafening bang. "Federal agents, drop your weapons!" Sterling had called in favors, disguised as feds. Chaos erupted. Victor's men opened fire blindly. Sterling's team returned fire with precision. Fiona dove behind a stack of pallets. David didn't dive. Panic overtook him. He scrambled into the driver's seat of the Audi. He slammed the door and gunned the engine. "David, don't!" she screamed. He wasn't trying to fight. He was trying to flee. He slammed the car into reverse, spinning it around, aiming for the open bay doors that led to the loading dock. But he was blinded by the flashbangs. He couldn't see. He accelerated straight toward Victor, clipping the Russian boss and sending him flying. The Audi skidded on the wet concrete. It spun out of control, smashing through the safety railing at the edge of the dock. For a second, the car hung in the air, headlights illuminating the black water below. Then, gravity took over. The car plunged nose first into the dark harbor water. Splash. The warehouse went silent, save for the echoes of gunfire. Victor was writhing on the ground, his leg shattered. His men were zip-tied on the floor. Fiona ran to the edge of the dock. Bubbles rose to the surface. The taillights of the Audi glowed red under the water, sinking deeper and deeper until they disappeared into the black. "David," she whispered. Sterling walked up beside her. He put a hand on her shoulder. "It's over, Fiona." She looked at the water. She didn't feel triumph. She felt a hollow ache. Not for the man who drove into the water. He had died a long time ago. but for the man he used to be. The man who promised to buy his son a telescope. "Where is Leo?" she asked, turning away from the abyss. "He's in the limo," Sterling said. "He didn't see the crash." She nodded. Her legs gave out. The adrenaline crash hit her like a freight train. The world tilted sideways, and the last thing she felt was Sterling catching her before she hit the ground. Fiona woke up to the smell of antiseptic and the steady beep of a monitor. Her head felt heavy, wrapped in thick bandages. She tried to move, but her arm was in a cast. "She's awake." It was a soft voice. Familiar. She opened her eyes. Leo was sitting in a chair next to the bed, holding a teddy bear. He looked terrified but unharmed. "Mommy!" He scrambled up, careful not to touch her injuries. "Hi, Bug!" she rasped. Her throat felt like sandpaper. Behind him, Robert Sterling stood. He looked tired, his suit rumpled for the first time. "You have a concussion, a broken arm, and 3 cracked ribs," Sterling said. "But the doctors say you're made of steel." "David?" she asked. It was a reflex. Sterling's face darkened. "He survived the crash. He's in the ICU down the hall, under police guard." She closed her eyes. "The Russians?" "In custody. The FBI picked up the transaction you sent. They arrived 3 minutes before the crash. You saved your own life, Fiona." Sterling walked over to the bed. "And you saved my firm. The FBI seized the crypto wallet, but because you cooperated, and because I have very good lawyers, we negotiated a deal. The money returns to the investors. David takes the fall for the embezzlement and the laundering. He's looking at 20 years, minimum. And us?" She looked at Leo. "We have nothing." He emptied the accounts. "The house will be seized." Sterling smiled, a rare, genuine smile. "I think you underestimate your value, Mrs. Miller. You found a forensic trail my entire security team missed. You negotiated a hostage exchange with the Russian mob, and you recovered $5 million in stolen assets." He placed a business card on the bedside table. "My CFO is retiring next month. I need someone who can spot a lie from a mile away. The starting salary is substantial, and it comes with a company apartment in the city, secure building. Doorman." Fiona looked at the card. "Chief Financial Officer, Sterling and Finch." "I don't have a resume," she joked weakly. "You just lived it," Sterling said. "Take the job, Fiona. Build a new life, one where you don't have to wait by the window for anyone." She looked at Leo. He was squeezing her hand. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll take it." 6 months later. The restaurant was loud, filled with the chatter of the lunch rush. Le Jardin. Fiona sat at the same booth where her life had fallen apart. But this time she wasn't wearing a housewife's cardigan. She was wearing a tailored navy suit. Across from her sat Isabella. She looked different, too. Quieter. She had started a non-profit for victims of financial fraud. They met once a month. It was an odd friendship, forged in fire, but it was real. "Did you hear?" Isabella asked, stirring her tea. "The sentencing was yesterday." "I heard," Fiona said. 25 years. She didn't feel happy. She didn't feel sad. She just felt free. "He asked to see you," Isabella said, before they transferred him. "No," Fiona said simply. "And Leo?" "Leo is doing great. He made the soccer team, and he knows his dad is in time out for a very long time. I'll tell him the truth when he's older. For now, he's just happy that Mummy comes home for dinner every night at 6 p.m. Sharp." The waiter arrived with dessert, a chocolate soufflé with a candle in it. "What's this?" Fiona asked. "It's not your birthday," Isabella smiled, "but it is your anniversary." "Anniversary of what?" "The day you stopped being a victim," she said. Fiona looked at the candle flickering in the dim light. She thought about the woman who had sat in this booth 6 months ago, scared, dependent, defined by her husband. She blew out the candle. That woman was gone, and she wasn't coming back. "Check, please," Fiona said to the waiter. "I've got this one." She paid with her own card. Platinum. Earned, not given. Fiona walked out of the restaurant, holding her head high. The sun was shining. The city was bustling. And for the first time in a long time, the future didn't look like a deadline. It looked like a promise. And this time, it was one she intended to keep. Fiona didn't just survive her husband's betrayal. She outsmarted the mob, saved her son, and built an empire from the ashes of her marriage. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the worst day of your life is actually the first day of your new life. You are stronger than you think, and you are never defined by the people who failed to love you. If Fiona's story kept you on the edge of your seat, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And if you want more stories about karma, justice, and rising from the ashes, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what we have coming next. Thanks for watching, and remember, know your worth, and never be afraid to walk away.